taking you with me.
Okay.
And are you okay to go live at the top of the hour?
We are okay. I am okay to go live. I see that the webinar has been open, so folks are
Yes.
trickling in. That's wonderful. Thank you for being here. We will get started right
Okay.
now.
There
Here we go.
Yeah.
So good afternoon, everybody. Bonjour tout le monde et bienvenue on behalf of Concordia University's fourth space. Located on unceded Indigenous land in Tiohtià:ke, Montreal, Fourth Space is activated daily with live events such as this one to create engagement around the various research projects, initiatives, ideas, and community conversations in development and happening across the university. So to that end, it's really our great pleasure to collaborate with BPO once again and to welcome all of you panelists and audience members alike into our virtual space. Unfortunately, we're back in here for now. But we're super excited for the future of Black employment in higher education institutions conversation happening today, where you have perspectives from Concordia staff and faculty brought to the table. So I will be passing it over to Isabelle Saint-Louis in just a minute to get you situated. But before I'll do so, quickly mention that you may already notice we are in a webinar format, which means we would implore you to join the conversation when you feel ready to do so by popping any comments or questions into the Q&A box. That will make Isabelle's life so much easier to have one place to keep her eye on. Thank you for your collaboration to that end. And if you have a burning desire to speak, well, you can speak in a webinar. All you have to do is activate your little raise hand emoji. So we'll see that your hand is raised and we can go ahead and unmute you when it's your turn. So the final thing I'll mention is that we are live streaming to YouTube, and I'll pop that link into the chat momentarily. On that happy note, it's over to you, Isabelle. Welcome in.
Thank you very much, Anna, and thanks for the Fourth Space for the collaboration on this event. So on behalf of the Black Perspective Office, welcome to this panel, and thank you for being present. My name is Isabelle Saint-Louis. I'm the facilitator for the Black Perspectives Office, and I'll be moderating this panel today. So today we're going to talk about the future of Black employment and higher education institution. We hear it every day, more and more, and there's a growing public acknowledgement that wants to see more initiatives addressing anti-Black racism within the Canadian higher education sector. In Canada, several universities are involved in fighting anti-Black racism, and we could see in a lot of them universities create committees, association groups. There are formal actions that are made. For example, the Scarborough Charter on Anti-Black Racism and Black Inclusion that was signed by nearly 50 universities across the country, including Concordia, of course. And in our university, we have the President Task Force on Anti-Black Racism that presented their recommendation, and the work is still ongoing. There's the creation of the Caucus of Black Concordian. So there's different actions in place. And with the panel today, what we want is to reflect on the efforts toward addressing anti-Black racism, systemic discrimination, and see where we're at today regarding recruitment, employee experience, advancement opportunities, what's the vision that we have for the future. So without further ado, I will present you our wonderful guests. So Dana Janvier, which is here. Dana, say hi. So Dana is a Concordia alumna, and she began her career in Concordia in 2019. She's the assistant to the associate vice president of finance, and she's the office manager for the finance department. She also is the co-lead of the Employment Initiative Subcommittee of the President Task Force on Anti-Black Racism, and she's the co-lead of the Caucus of Black Concordian. Dana is passionate about matters of social justice, as well as the fight against anti-Black racism and equity in the workplace. She hopes her commitment and involvement in the task force will contribute to creating equitable work environment for professionals from marginalized groups. Welcome, Dana.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So next we have Linda Dyer. Hi, Linda. Linda is a professor of management and interim department chair, as well as being the graduate program director at John Molson School of Business. She studies the establishment of relationships between small firms owners and their employees, as well as being interested in how owner managers interact with professional business advisor. Another important stream of her research consists in understanding the organizational impact of demographic diversity, especially when it comes to age, ethnicity, and gender. Linda published many articles in journals such as the Journal of Managerial Psychology and the International Journal of Small Business, as well as chapters in various books. So thank you for being with us, Linda.
Happy to be here.
Thank you. And last but not least, Jacqueline Peters. Jacqueline is a part-time professor, and she teaches social linguistics in the classic modern language and linguistic department. She received her bachelor's in linguistics from Concordia and her master's in linguistics from the University of Toronto, and she's a doctoral candidate in linguistics at York University. Jacqueline is a member of the President Task Force on Anti-Black Racism Steering Committee, and she also is a co-lead in the Employment Initiative Subcommittee. She also is the EDI officer of the CUPFA, which is the Part-Time Faculty Association. She is coordinator of the Caucus of Black Concordian. And Jacqueline is very, very invested in her different roles, and she made anti-racism an integral part of her work. Glad you're here with us, Jacqueline.
Thank you for doing this.
Thank you. So now that I made my part of your introduction, how about telling us a little more about your path, about how you landed here in Concordia or any other involvement? Jacqueline, would you like to start?
Okay. Well, you basically have said most of the things I was going to say. I used to teach ESL, which is probably the only thing that most people don't know, for many years, and got involved with anti-racism, I think, at that level when I began to teach refugees and immigrants from Sub-Saharan Africa. Sub-Saharan Africa, sorry. And that's what brought my attention to the conditions. And then, thought about my own position here as a Black Canadian. My research is in ethno-cultural empathy. So that covers a lot of mixed race interactions between medical experts, medical professionals, and their non-white clients.
I can continue if you want to. I don't mind continuing. Basically,
Go ahead.
You basically said most of my pedigree, which is kind of like small because I'm a young professional, if I can say like that. So yes, I graduated from Concordia in 2014, and basically I worked in the tourism industry most of my student life, and then after that, small adult life. And then I landed at Concordia less than 3 years ago, and I kind of landed in like doing this work with the President Task Force and the Caucus of Black Concordia with Jacqueline, because I was really looking for my peers as I was working at Concordia. I had a couple of colleagues that were from African descent, but I was really searching for more and wanted to network and connect with more Black Concordians. So that's how I landed here, and I'm happy to be here.
Great, awesome. And what about you, Linda? I know you've been in Concordia the longest, so maybe.
Oh yeah, well, Dana describes herself as a young professional. I guess I describe myself as an aged professional. No, I've been here more than 30 years. I won't tell you how many more than 30 years I've been working here. I guess when I arrived at the business school, because I teach at the John Wilson School of Business, I was one of a very small number of Black faculty members, but I was one of an even smaller number of female faculty members. And so those were the two areas in which I suppose my difference was vivid. Over the years, of course, I've been in a variety of different roles, but the one that I think is most relevant here is my role as a researcher with one of my Black colleagues. We did some research with small Black enterprises here in Montreal, and in Toronto to a certain extent. And I feel that that experience was very interesting for me, enlarging for me to understand the Black experience, not necessarily in higher education per se, but in the community as a whole here in Montreal.
All right, thank you. So despite the different efforts through commitments toward EDI that are made by Canadian universities, we still see in the studies that representation remains a big issue at different level of academia, and this is especially seen in higher leadership and permanent faculty position. So considering this, what are your thoughts about it? Where you think the issue is standing, and does this remind you of any challenges that you faced before being hired at Concordia? Linda, would you like to start?
Sure, I could start. It is certainly the case that the number of Black faculty members in the university at Concordia is lower than one would expect, given the percentage of the population that's Black. That said, though, it's very difficult to think about recruitment at the level of entering an academic position at Concordia. We really have to think about it as going back quite a ways. So we need to make sure that there is that pipeline of representation throughout, as opposed to simply in a faculty position. So I would say that when I think about the number of Black students that I've had, it tends to be lower than their representation in the population. And we go back a step and we start thinking about cégep, we think about high school, we think about, in a way, ensuring that recruitment efforts are successful at bringing Black staff members, people working at the university. We have to make sure that that pipeline goes way back to when people are children, where they look forward and they say, here is something that could be for me. Here is something that I could do. And I'm afraid that that's where I see a lot of work to be done that has not yet been done.
That's very interesting. We tend to think that we're not, there's a lot of like people that are not hired, but indeed there's a work to be done like way more before accessing like the higher spheres. So interesting, thank you. Dana, would you like to pursue?
Yeah, sure. I can give I would say more staff, perspective on it.
Yeah.
We can definitely see that in the staff population does not represent, I would say, the student population in terms of staff from African descent. As I was at Concordia looking for my peers, it was easier for me to find them at, I would say, entry-level position, maybe managerial position. But I think when we go higher up the ladder, we tend not to see people that look like us. And in many interviews that we conducted with our subcommittee within the task force, is the repeated concern that we hear from Black staff is that they don't feel represented at the senior administrative position. And they have a concern that if those positions are the one who would guide, let's say, the decision of the university and the vision of the university, they ask themselves, is my concern or am I being taken into account when these decisions are made, because there's no one at the table that resembles me? And I think that is something that we should definitely look into. But as Linda said, it's really to go back to our student groups and then down to cégep and high school to really recruit these soon to be professionals to come work in our establishment.
Thank you, Dana. Jacqueline, would you like to add?
Sure. I mean, I don't have a lot to add. Linda said exactly what I wanted to say. And I do agree that we have to go back to the beginning. Often we hear when we ask about the lack of Black representation, we're told that, well, there isn't anyone out there. So the first step is to get people out there. And also that's not 100% true. There are people out there. I mean, I think one of the things that we need to look at changing is how the university looks for its staff and faculty, the places that they look, and to make that change. And I think part of the change, as well as coming from the outside, also has to come from the inside as well.
Yeah, totally. And let's say, according to either to you, your experience, or what you witnessed, what barriers are still keeping people from African descent to be hired in our university? So I know we talked about like the difficulties, or not difficulties, but I mean, we talked about that there's a work to be done before reaching the higher level. But when we're looking at the situation right now, so what do you think that could be more efficient to attract people from our communities in higher education institutions?
I would say for staff, it would be maybe to revisit our recruitment process to have more diversity and people from African descent. I as I said before, like, are we like engaging our student groups? Are we engaging our Black alumni network? Are we how are we going back out there to actually promote ourselves to these to all diverse groups, basically, to make them feel welcome and encouraged to apply at Concordia and be part of this community? Because it's not all bad things. We have a great community at Concordia. It's just that maybe we need to review our recruitment process in terms of staff to see, like, how are we promoting these vacancies? Are we reaching back into the communities to engage them to come to Concordia?
Yeah, that's a great point.
I think that for those that are already here, I think there is definitely a black ceiling that prevents staff from moving up as they should. It doesn't work the same way with faculty, but definitely with staff. I think that some of the barriers that are faced by both students and colleagues from staff and faculty are the microaggressions that we have to live with, that make it difficult to come to work sometimes. The lack of cultural competence, the academic colorblindness that results in people feeling invisible, the unconscious bias that exists regardless of how hard we work at ridding our environment of that. I think we need to support those of us that are already here and make it and that would also help to make it a welcoming place for those that come in.
All right. Thank you, Jacqueline. Linda, would you like to comment?
I guess for me, and I can only talk about my own story. Absolutely. And I guess for me, my story is such that one is not always sure what are the reasons why one doesn't move forward. And I know that Jacqueline talked about microaggressions. People talk about feeling that they weren't represented in the higher levels, so maybe that creates a ceiling. And I have no doubt that that may be so. I guess I have not felt it personally. And one of the things that I would love to see more of is different people telling their stories. I think that these stories are very powerful. And I think that there are a number of different interpretations of any event, of any, career. And so I feel that by different people giving their interpretations, talking about their progress, talking about things that made them pause and think, why did that just happen? Why did that person just say that? Is it because I'm female? Is it because I'm Black? Is it because I'm young? Is it because, and we don't know. So we put our own interpretation on things. And I think by listening to other people's interpretations, listening to other people's narratives, we can get a much better feel for the situation. We can understand better how to move forward. You know, I love the idea of these new policies. I love the idea of all of these programs that are being built and, you know, the activities at universities, the Scarborough Charter, you know, all of it. It's great stuff. But what really persuades people and what really I think has impact on their lives is narrative, their stories. They're hearing other people's stories and seeing themselves reflected and saying, yeah, I could do that too. So maybe there's nobody in top administration at a particular university who loves the universities, and I know their stories. So I feel that I too can do that. And so to me, story is what it's all about.
I'm really glad you said that, Linda, because with our subcommittee, the Employment Initiative subcommittee, we conducted narratives with staff, and hearing their story and how they interpreted what happened to them in the workplace, and how their progress within their career really gave us, I would say, a blueprint or a deeper understanding of the situation we currently have for staff. So I'm glad that you said that, because we did the conducted interviews, and it was really enlightening.
It really was. And as a sociolinguist, I know how important narratives are. Sometimes they're great to hear. They're sometimes hard to hear, right, but they need to be heard.
Definitely.
I agree 100%.
Indeed, there's really something strong about like the stories, hearing from other people. Sometimes we think we know, but we don't know unless we hear them. And indeed, it's a very interesting point. So talking about like your experience as an employee or navigating through your personal or your professional careers, could you talk about maybe like a specific challenge that you might have encountered navigating the university as a Black person, or maybe if you didn't live it directly, maybe something that you witnessed or that you were told about?
I can begin if you like. I haven't had any major challenges as an employee of Concordia, as a student perhaps, but not as an employee. Mm-hmm. But I have heard, as Donna said, we had our the narrative collection that we did for our subcommittee. I've heard from students, their experiences. I think that it's important that we consider the fact that a lot of us are first generation, that we're often the only Black person in the room, if even sometimes the only person of color. There's weight to these experiences, both good and bad. It gives us a view of the world that not everyone has, but it also is a weight that we carry. I think part of the solutions are more culturally appropriate support, mental health support, for example. One of the things that we're asking for or will ask for, and that everybody seems to want, is a space for us to be ourselves, whatever that means for each person. More formal, informal networking, the kind that Donna is really good at, and that the Black Caucus wants to encourage and supply. I think that what we've been doing so far I think I'm jumping ahead to some of your other questions. Okay. But I think that I agree with Linda that there's a lot has been done. And really happy to see all that has been done. I just think also that it's a bit early to see where it's going to lead to, so we can only just work hard and cross our fingers.
Awesome, thank you, Jacqueline.
In terms of challenges, I'm barely new at Concordia as a staff member. I did really enjoy my experience as a student. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to come back so bad to be actually a staff at Concordia. I haven't had challenges for myself, but I've heard and I've witnessed other people that experience challenges, and we discussed it a couple of minutes ago about that ceiling that we hit at a certain phase at a certain stage in our career. For myself, I'm just asking, basically what I'm asking is, we interviewed maybe a dozen of people, and the ones who had longer career all had the same testimony, all in different sectors. So I highly doubt that they all had performance issues, or they all had I think there's similarities in their stories within different sectors with different years of experience. I think it's safe enough to say that there's a certain I won't say invisible ceiling, but there is a ceiling.
Mhm. Thank you. Linda, I see you. Do you think you have something to add?
I'm just thinking.
Mhm.
No, it is certainly true that, I mean, I've been at Concordia an awfully long time. And the reason that I stayed here is I like it here. And what I like about Concordia is, at least in my experience, it's the sort of openness, the flexibility, the conversations that happen here. And so, I'm pondering what Dana just said about many people in the staff who've been here for a long time feeling that the ceiling hasn't moved. They haven't been able to progress the way they have to be. And I really do see Concordia as a place where people can speak out and say, I am not comfortable with my career progress so far. So what are we going to do? So I think in that regard, conversations like this, other things that happen at the university where people in administrative positions say, we are ready to listen. I see that as being a cue for people to say, okay, so we are ready to speak. And I think Concordia does have a history of addressing issues. We don't always address it as effectively as possible. We're not always successful, but I don't think Concordia is a place where people should feel silenced. And so I am just thinking about the ways that one can ensure that people feel comfortable speaking up and that people are heard. And that is a direct, call out to the administration to listen and to act.
And I know that for so many, it's difficult to express their experience. They don't know how much they will be heard. And Jacqueline, you were mentioning a bit earlier about like the microaggression that may happen on the work environment. And with this opening that we seem to have here in Concordia, like how can someone like address those the difficult situations? Is there like maybe a way that you would think about, like how can they address the invisible labor and experiences? Maybe my question wasn't very clear. Let me let me
I just don't know how to answer that.
Yeah.
I mean, for microaggressions, it's something that's very dear to my heart. I think I can describe it that way. And I will be giving some workshops for faculty, full and part-time, in the very near future. So there are ways of dealing with it. And I think what I meant when I was talking about it at this point was not just for us on how to deal with it, or other people who are witnessing them how to deal with it. I don't think this is really the place to talk about that, but just acknowledging the fact that it's something we have to deal with. And even if it's not in the office or in the classroom, it can happen outside. It can happen on the way to work, which will, affect your day. I mean, as much as we are experienced in covering it up and going on, it's still there. Yeah, so I think that, I think we do have to learn to, to teach other people to avoid these kinds of situations, so that we're not walking, from the metro having just been microaggressed in some way, and then getting it when you walk into the office, whether it's from, a joke, as I know you mentioned that, whether it's a racial or racist joke, or whether it's just the way you're treated when you enter a space.
Okay. And how how to actually address it. You know, like as Black people, sometimes we tend to do extra than the work that we're hired for. We sometimes support other colleagues that have situation. We may mentor other people without it being like formally part of your task. So at a certain point, it may become a lot. And like, how do you feel that we can address this type of invisible experiences? Like, we know we live them, but like when we have the external look, like people don't see that. They will see Linda teaching, they will see Dana, they'll see you, Jacqueline, but there's all of this that we carry as Black people. So do you have something to add to this, Dana, maybe?
For me, it's a question that I think that I can say it's a loaded question, but it's something that personally also in my life that it's something that it's hard to wrap my mind around and wrap, like, what is the solution? How do we address it? How do we move forward from it? How do we express it? Like, and where do we have place to address those microaggressions? As Jacqueline said, something just happened in the metro, and then I go to work, and as soon as I click my card in, and there's something else, and where do I go from there? It's something that I still haven't quite wrapped my mind around on how to address. Maybe Linda has the.
I'll let Jacqueline take that.
I think part of the thing, I mean, it's one of the things that I noticed when we started coming together as a Black community, Donna, thanks to you at the start, before we got all the formal organizations set up, was being able to be in a room, virtual, to be in a room with other Black people who had experienced the same situations, so that there was nobody said, when we told them about an incident, and these, this is one of the things that I when I talk about microaggressions, is how some of these incidents happened way in our past, but they're still there. We still remember them and can just, bring them up like that. And when we didn't talk about them in that first group we had, Donna, nobody said, well, are you sure that, maybe you misunderstood? Everybody understood instantly what we were talking about. And that took a lot of weight off, a lot of anxiety, a lot of pain. It really did make a difference to be heard by people who understood, which is why networking, I think, is so important. And yeah, I mean, and the other part, I guess, is, like, as I said, is to try to get people to understand when they say, consciously or subconsciously, things that are offensive, not to. It's that denial that doubles down on the discomfort and the anxiety, and so that's one of the things I think we need to deal with.
Indeed.
Did that answer the question?
Yes, it's good. It's good. And if I may add to this, well, as part of the Black Perspective Office, we're also here in Concordia to hear those experiences. Like, sometimes you don't know how to navigate through that. So we offer different types of services also and consultation that are non-judgmental, confidential. So I had to add these 2 cents because we're here for that. If ever you don't know where to look, where to go. And yes, I'm fairly new as well in Concordia, but with the team, we're working real hard to create such environment for our communities.
I like that idea of an environment of people where you can express frustrations, etc. I think that's very important. I think the other part of it, though, what balances it for me, as a person who's a teacher and a researcher, we're getting critical feedback every day from all sorts of people. So students who feel that, you didn't treat me fairly, I want more marks, I want, whatever, right? So you're getting criticism all the time. When you're a researcher and you're collecting your data and you're writing papers, you're getting criticism all the time from anonymous reviewers, who are going to look at what you wrote and said, well, that was stupid. And so I think that for all of us across the board, it's nice to be able to temper this constant criticism with the ability to be able to talk to people who will say, yeah, I know life is, okay, I'm not supposed to say rude words here, am I? Life is a challenge, let's put it that way, But you can, and I see it almost like a family. You could have a tough time at work, you get home and you say to your family, oh my Lord, today was a day. And, they're there to listen to you and to let you vent and that sort of thing. And they may even make suggestions saying, hey, tomorrow, maybe what you can do is say AY, etc. So I see that place where people can see other people of African descent at Concordia as a quote family where they could go and talk a bit is very important. I don't think it's not a solution. I don't think. It's a way to make the person feel stronger that when they return to their work, they can say, I need you to hear me, or I need this resource in order to go further. So I think the Black Perspectives Office, wonderful place, but it cannot end there. It has to be that strengthening, that resilience that we can share among others like us to go and forge our way through the career path that we've chosen.
Amen.
Nicely said. Thank you. And so we've been talking about the sharing of experience, to have a place where we can discuss this in our work environment. We talked about also like the importance to have networking events. So what's like for you, and I think we kind of mentioned it, but what would be some type of support or type of support and advocacy that you would like to see or that you would need throughout your journey here in Concordia? Do you see a lack somewhere and you're thinking like, oh, this would be interesting and I would need this, or something that looks like this?
I think it's in development, but I think that the Caucus of Black Concordian, we have an opportunity to create that space. And we are many at Concordia that I know of, and I know that I don't know everyone. So I'm pretty sure that we have a good amount of people that could, I would say, get involved and really build that caucus and build that group for us to have an advocacy group or networking group for us to really have a space that is dedicated for us and that is made by us. As Linda said, that will give us strength after that to go back to work and demand what we want and speak up, because we had a chance to let that first, I would say, raft go with our colleagues and our peers. And now with that networking also setting, have experience from maybe a more experienced staff or more experienced faculty that could guide you in the problematic or in the issue that you have in the moment, to give you more strength and really have that base for you to move forward. So I think that space is needed and it's possible to create also.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, what Linda said was really important about that the support that we can get from one another in a safe space does give you the strength to go out into the world again and deal with, ask for, deal with whatever comes across your desk, or and also to be able to ask for what you need. I mean, it helps a lot to know that there are people behind you, or even somewhere you can go and if you're refused, you can go back and say, whoops, they turned me down, or whatever the case may be, or it didn't work. But even even knowing that there are people behind you makes all the difference in the world.
Good. And other than also, we talked about like the BPO being like a place to discuss, but not necessarily a solution. But have you seen any other efforts? Well, oh, sorry, I always get like confused with my words. But did you see any efforts put by the university that gave positive results according to what you see, your experience, or again, what you witnessed?
One of the things, if I could jump in, one of the things that I've liked a lot, and I don't know if it has positive results or anything, but it goes back to what I was saying earlier about the stories, about the narrative. And in the subcommittee in which I'm working, one of the people there is a librarian. And she said that some years, it must have been before the pandemic. So I've completely lost track of time during this pandemic, but let's say it was 2 or 3 years ago. And in the library, there was an exhibit with a number of photographs of, I think they were Black Montrealers going back a few hundred years or something like that. I don't remember the details, but I remember walking and looking at this and saying, this is really cool. And I think that exhibits like that, events like that, would draw people into saying, yes, there's stories to be told about people like us. And it makes you feel that, yes, this is a place that I belong. And so it doesn't really need to be just a supervisor or a colleague or whatever telling you that you belong. It could actually be the artifacts around us, the exhibits, the posters, the sculptures, the whatever that are around us that make us feel, yes, this is part of where I belong, you know. And I think that that can be very encouraging. It's hard to see what the success is because we don't go around and say to people, you know, did you look at that library exhibit and feel, did it make you feel better? But, you know, we can do things like that because my personal experience is that it was a success for me.
I agree. I think all those symbols of belonging. I didn't see that exhibit. I don't know how I missed it, but yeah, I mean, I think it's something that's definitely necessary for us to see that we're not that we weren't the first, and that there is a past here that is a part of our past, you know, indirectly for the most part, but you know, the acknowledgement that we've been here for a long time.
Yeah, right. I love that line, symbols of belonging. I'm going to use that.
In terms of results, I would say, for me, I haven't seen results yet, but I've seen a lot of effort and I've seen a lot of action put forward. And I'm really, I would say, I'm really excited to see in the future, I would say the effort that the university will really take to put forward the work that is being done by the task force, I would say at this moment, and the time and resources that they will put into the various, I'm pretty sure, recommendations that they will get back to really apply more action and more change. For me right now, I haven't seen many results, but I see a lot of action and a lot of effort and a lot of initiative to push forward the anti-Black racism at Concordia, definitely.
And also by being involved in the caucus, this also gives you a wide range of things that are happening also in the university.
Exactly. And you know, we welcome all Black faculty and staff to the caucus to participate into whatever level you're, you know, even if just to get, you know, the messages that we send out once in a while, or to, you know, become part of our you know, the different committees that we'll be setting up in the steering committee that we're working to put together now. I just want to, you know, put that out there, that like you did with the BPO.
This is the place.
Free advertising, yeah. But yeah, anyone that's not aware of it and is interested in becoming a member, please, well, everyone's a member just by virtue of being a Black Concordian. There's not a link to the caucus, but you can, I just saw that someone asked that question, but you can contact me and I will put your name on the list. we tried our best to get, everyone on every Black person that we all knew on the list. We obviously didn't get everyone, but yes, just let me know. It's a contact me, and I will definitely put you on the list.
That's great. Awesome. So now if we get to talk about a bit more about moving around and different promotion opportunities, we talk often about mentorship as a key element that could be very helpful to help Black employees navigate through the systems, hence access higher positions. I believe that mentorship, yes, certainly has great benefits, but would you consider it as the main element, or would you see something else? What's your thought on this one?
As the main element, I would say no, if I had to answer that question.
Mm-hmm.
I think that networking is also a way to be guided and mentored throughout your career. The more you that's how I got here. That's how I met Jacqueline. Now meeting Linda, it's through networking, and I think that's also a way to help first staff. I would say advance your career or get into other surroundings. It's by networking. I don't think mentorship is the only way for you to go high up the ladder.
Mm-hmm. All right.
I guess I hesitate a little bit when we talk about mentoring, but I hesitate because I'm not sure whether you mean that people within the Black community of Concordia mentoring others within the Black community, or if you're thinking about it more broadly than that. Because I know that for me, when I came here 30 plus years ago, my mentor was actually an elderly white man.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I don't know. I'm calling him elderly when he's probably the same age. He was the same age I am now. And I'd hate anybody to call me elderly.
We won't tell him. We won't say.
But I learned so much from him. And I remember that line when he said, Linda, this is your career. Your place is here.
Mm-hmm.
That has always stayed with me. But he wasn't from within. He was just somebody who was sort of positive and encouraging and etc.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't think that there's anything wrong with trying to ensure sort of Black membership of new Black members. The problem is there are not enough of us, and we are run off our feet. I mean, I'm happy to be here today, but I know at the back of this morning, I was thinking, oh my Lord, I have so much to do. And I have to do this. And it's important that I'm going to do this. But, I think we all feel very stretched.
Yeah, that's an important point that you mentioned, right. That all of that invisible labor that's surrounding, and then that we can't really see.
Yeah, I agree I agree with Linda that it's hard for those of us who are already weighed down with helping others and trying to do what we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, so I don't know how, I think mentorship is important. Like Linda, I had a mentor who was white and who made me feel like I belonged here, right? That said things to me that no one had ever said in my whole, my education. That made me feel like I could do what I needed to do, what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. So I think it can come from anywhere. I think it like Linda said, it would be great if we had at least a choice of having Black mentors as well. But we need to have those bodies here in order to do that. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's the main element. I think that the main element is to be able to have that place, that network that will allow us to contact with the Black employees that are already here. Mm-hmm. That's more important.
Yeah, and just to add to what Linda asked, also when I mention mentoring, it's not necessarily from a Black person. So, but to have someone, even though the person would be non-Black, that would be there to accompany like Black employees that may have a need to navigate better the system. Dana, would you like to add?
No.
Oh, actually, you.
I didn't.
All right, that's good. Great. So I can hear that Linda and Jacqueline, you had someone, and when I say mentorship, again, it's not necessarily the formal, Linda, here's your mentor, and like you have your conversation. You can have a mentor that's not even like in the universities, like in your personal life, but sometimes it's that kind of external add-on to your professional path and personal as well, that can be very helpful to advance your career. And so what I was saying, Linda and Jacqueline, you had someone to help you or to guide you or to assist you. And do you feel that having that person helped you get to the position that you have right now?
I can say literally yes, because the class that I teach is the one that she taught me in. So directly, yes. Yeah. So yes, but I know that's not always the case, and it was a more informal mentorship, obviously, because we don't have, as far as I know, not many formal relationships that are set up like this. But it wasn't just showing me how to maneuver around the university, but it was that encouragement that I think the Black students don't necessarily get going through school. And so, like I said, I mean, I came back to school as an adult, and it actually, I mean, brought tears to my eyes, because I only realized then when speaking to her that I had never heard those words before that she had said to me. And I, it made the biggest difference. So it enabled me to go much further than I had ever planned to go.
That's great. Linda, I see you. I don't know if you're thinking you want to add to this. Like, do you feel like...
don't really know that I can answer this. I've been around too long. When you said putting you into the roles of the places you are now, I'm thinking of all these roles and thinking, if somebody really talked me into doing all this stuff that I have to do now, I would be kicking them in the shins, saying, you should have told me no, slow down, don't do X, avoid Y. So I'm sort of joking, but what I'm saying is, I think Jacqueline is absolutely right, that they're pivotal moments. There are particular things that somebody says to you at particular times that it may not be a formal mentorship, but it stays with you and it becomes a watchword that you continue. And it's either a very positive thing, or it may be that somebody says something and you think, I am never going to be like that.
Exactly.
And so when I feel like being sort of mean to a colleague or this or that, I think, oh, I don't want to be like so-and-so.
Exactly.
So these are the little memes in our head that make us say, this is who I'm going to be. This is who I want to be. And I see that as a form of mentorship in a way.
Yeah. The kind of teacher you want to be.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yes.
Exactly. And the kind you don't.
That's right. And those are always the vivid stories that I
always
never repeat while being recorded, but I know as a teacher, there are certain things you think, never, ever, ever am I going to fall into that.
Yeah, no, that's never going to be like that. Exactly.
And
never
what about
my
you?
students cry.
Sorry, Jacqueline?
Oh, no, nothing.
Good answer.
Yeah, didn't say a thing.
All right, I'll share the recording later. So, so Dana, have you ever, did you had any, even though it could be like very informal, did you had any?
And it was always in networking settings where I had that person who said that particular thing, and you have a pivotal moment. And even as close to last month in one of our roundtable discussions, someone guided me in my maybe future career path, and I wasn't expecting that, but it was a pivotal moment for me, and it was totally informal because we were clearly having just a discussion, and they enlightened me in so many ways. So I do had these moments, but more in networking settings and not formally like a mentor mentee. Format.
Yeah, but even when they're informal, they stick with us, and
yes,
and you know, sometimes you can't even like remember who said it, but you remember the setting, you remember like how you felt when you heard these words, and it's really helpful when you want to go forward. And like maybe on the other side, do you feel like you are kind of mentoring someone? It could be like a student or a colleague, or do you feel you're in such type of relation with a pair as a mentor? But it could be also I only have the French word accompagnateur, like when you accompany. Do you feel that you're in such position?
I try as much as I can with the students that I hire, let's say for casual work. I try as much as I can to guide them and to answer their question and to share my experience if it's of any relevance, even if it's a short experience. I do try my best to guide them in the most positive way. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, with students, definitely, especially, but not only students of color who often I'm the first Black professor they've ever had. And so they feel that there are things that they can ask or say to me that they may not have been able to ask or say before. I'm always on the lookout for the first generation students, because that's what I was, and I know how hard it can be to maneuver around an institution as large as a university, and people don't necessarily, there's a lot of assumptions that students that come to university know what they're supposed to do, and I don't mean just the administrative things, but so I'm always on the lookout for them to make sure that they can avoid and avoid some of the issues that can come up when you're first generation, and also to know what's there to help, what's there to help, what's already in place.
And we can see in the chat a comment of Tiana, who said that you were my first and only Black prof at Concordia.
Oh, hi,
Tiana. Okay, well, she's making a comment. I'll read it. I feel what can be a challenge is the particular way of doing the work that pushes against bureaucracy. It isn't always understood by our colleagues, or can even go challenged by some of our colleagues. I find that, generally speaking, the Black staff faculty usually go above and beyond for the students, the invisible labor we were talking earlier, because we have an understanding of systemic and cultural barriers that our students, usually first generation, have to navigate, and we work in such way to support students and minimize these barriers. Instead, I find that there can be this mindset that students always need to level up. Thanks for your comment, Tiana, very appreciate. And is there anyone who wants to comment maybe on this or not?
I mean, I think one of the, which we're not always aware of, but the students are very aware that we go beyond. I mean, to our colleagues, our bosses might not be aware, but our students are aware that we sometimes do have to go above and beyond what's expected of us. And that there is that understanding, that I mean, this is one of the things I really dislike about being online, is not even being able to see, not being able to see the majority of my students. And so not knowing if there's someone there who may need a little extra help because of their background. And that doesn't necessarily have to be, a person of color, but nonetheless, there's sometimes you can see someone and you can say, well, if they're having issues, is this issue because of the life they've lived or are living outside of the university? or even within the university and their other classes, other experiences they're having that are making that it difficult for them to do their work. Yeah, so I think that Tiana is right, that there's an understanding between us, that we mentioned this a number of times, that this there's an understanding that there are things that we live with, that unless you're Black in Canada, you're not aware of. And I always think of it as, I mean, something that Linda said that made me think of this. It's like what she said about being family. It's like, when I talk to my best friend that I've had, been my friend since I was 11 years old, there are things I never had to explain to her. And that's what it's like. Yeah, that's what it's like with, without having to give that big background story of why I feel this way. When I'm talking to someone who looks like me, I don't have to do that. Saves a lot of time.
Indeed. I see a question here. Sorry, I can't see the name. I think it's Dominic. Yeah, from Dominic. Do you feel that your environment, like family, friends, prepared you to be able to succeed in your field without a proper representation?
That's for you, Donna.
I believe they did. I really have a my parents came here alone. So they had us, and we just had each other. So there's the way I grew up, there was a sense of you have to make it, whether you like it or not, figure it out, but make it work. So yes, for me, that even though I didn't feel represented at work in my different jobs that I had before Concordia, I always had that support system, whether it was my family or friends, they would encourage me and remind me of who I am and what I'm capable of, despite the challenges that I may face at work or just in society in general.
I guess I feel that there's a similar story that I have. I grew up in Trinidad in the Caribbean. I didn't come to Canada until I was 18. And my parents were both educators. It was just a given that I would be at university. It was a given that, I would be ambitious. It was not a particular career choice, but it was just expected. They expected it, I expected it. And so I think that the normality of being in a professional position as a Black person, if you grow up in a place like Trinidad in the Caribbean, you're surrounded by people like that, And so it's absolutely normal. And it's just, for me, it was a real shock when I first came here to realize that there was a Black community within Montreal where it was not normal, and that was a learning for me. And I would love, if there's anything that I feel I need to do, is to spend more time in the community. As I was saying, I'm circling back to the beginning now, talking about telling those stories that would make being Black in a professional career and being ambitious and moving up, that's a perfectly normal thing, as opposed to, oh, you are special because you're Black in this. We're not special. We're just people doing our thing, And I would love that story to grow and grow within our Montreal Black community over time, or within any Black community over time, of course.
I have to disagree with you. I think we're very special. Yes. But otherwise, I agree. I think there is a big difference, and I've seen it, quite often with people who've grown up, spent a majority of their life, or the first part of their life, in communities where everybody looks like them, and they see, they do see that representation. I grew up here, not in Montreal, but in Hamilton, which is, especially at the time, was working class. So there weren't the same expectations. There wasn't the same kind of support, and there definitely wasn't any kind of representation. And that's something that's always stayed with me. And I know the difference it made. And I didn't notice it in Concordia, which is one of the things I love about Concordia, that there are a lot of working class people in Concordia. but I noticed it when I went back to Toronto to go to grad school. And that's when I realized the differences that I had never noticed before, having grown up in Canada, the differences of being a Black and being working class. That's where it really was pointed out to me. And so it's something that, again, I watch out for students who, again, first generation, that doesn't have necessarily the, somehow arrived at university without that the representation or even sometimes the support of family and friends. Who, a lot of us leave our friends behind when we move on to to get a higher education. And so again, that's something that we need to be aware of and keep that in mind when we're dealing with our students who are, who are learning as they're learning, learning to be in an institution, and as they're learning the things that we're actually there to teach them.
Perfect. Thank you, Jacqueline. The period of question is not yet kind of open, but we're gonna get there very soon. We're in it, and see, since my eyes are like working from place to place, I have Anik here that she has a question or she wants to make a comment.
Hi everyone.
Hi,
So
Anik.
good to see you all.
Hi.
It's been so wonderful, and thank you all for being here, and Isabel for moderating. I just wanted to make a small comment and also hear kind of your feedback on some of this. But one of the things that I think happens a lot from our the invisible labor that we do and the undercompensation from that work that we're doing as staff members, faculty members, employees in general, is that at the same time that there's this whole component of work that is unrecognized, I feel it's also untrained. So we often take on roles that may be beyond our actual capacities. I feel I've learned, it's been really interesting to manage the BPO and to actually have my position where I can focus on thinking about, well, how am I going to support? And that can be that being the actual core of my work, and having time to train myself in that, to understand what that means, to understand what the resources of the university are, and so on and so forth. And I know that so many of Black Concordians do that on top of their, typical job that's actually, the qualifications that are actually asked of them. And I find that because it's unrecognized, because it's not seen as important labor, we also don't get the resources and the training and the support to be able to do it well. Because we do have a bit of an innate training of, the Black experience, because we're Black people. And so we have that kind of sensitivity training and that ability, as Tiana was mentioning, to kind of understand the systemic and cultural barriers. And that's life that gave that to us. But then what are the institutional supports that could really help us to do our jobs better? And also, I think, would help us to be better recognized for it, because we know that, at least in the way that the world is functioning now, that unless you have training X, Y, and Z, you don't get recognized for the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Anik. Is there one of you three that wants to comment first?
Well, I think Anik is absolutely right about the resources that exist at the university. And there are all sorts of things that one learns over time. Oh, I could have gone to X, or Y knows a lot about that, etc. And I feel that it's not sort of limited to the Black population. It's not limited to a working class population. It's not limited in any way. It's just there are all sorts of resources, and knowing where to tap them is important. But nobody ever teaches us about these resources. Nobody ever says, here are all the different things that are available. A lot of this came out because of the pandemic. Because we had to go online, all of a sudden, there are lists of things, here's what you can get in health services. Here's what you can get in the Office of Rights and Responsibilities. Here's this, here's that. So in a way, the pandemic has had that, it's pushed us into this place where we really are getting lists of resources that if we use them creatively, we could help all sorts of people that we didn't realize we could help using Concordia resources. So I think that's a plus. Everything else about the pandemic is a negative, but the lists are a plus.
Yes, I definitely agree with you, Linda, and also with Anik. And like you're untrained to do more tasks and more responsibilities. And that's why I stress so much about networking, because I've been able to maneuver and navigate this environment with the power of networking. I by talking to people and by reaching out to colleagues, that's how I knew, oh, there's that training that I can take, or there's that workshop there that I can go. So I'm annoying with networking, but for me it is a success, because that's how I've been able to kind of find my ground at Concordia. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Nick as well. Is that there has to be at least some training and recognition that, you know, we have a label that we give to patients. My research is in a medical institution, and we talk about patients who've lived with their illness for most, if not all of their lives, and so we call them experts of experience. And I think that's what we are too, and that's something that's not recognized. That there is that expertise that Tiana and Nick mentioned, and that needs to be recognized, and then also the need for training, so that we can become experts in other ways to help those that ask for our help.
Isabel, am I allowed to say that I disagree with what Jacqueline just said? She did it to me just now, so I'm doing it back at her.
All good, Linda.
No, seriously though, I think that you're right. I think that training can come alongside particular experiences that we want to share with people. I think that's important. But I guess I somewhat resist the assumption that because I'm a Black faculty member, I should be learning more about how to support, et cetera, et cetera. And so you need to come for training. You must do this, you must do that, so that you can become a good actor in your role as a Black faculty member. And part of me says, yeah, but I'm other things too, you know, and I don't want to be put into that position where it becomes my responsibility. I prefer it to come from me saying, this is what I want to do, than other people looking at me and saying, oh yeah, you'd be a great person to be doing X, Y, Z because you are Black. It's not acceptable.
No, I agree with you. I don't think that's what Nick meant either. I hope nobody forces us to train to do that, because that won't be good. Yeah, but I mean, for those of us that want to, or feel that, you know, I mean, that, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's, and that feel comfortable doing it, that, because you're right. I mean, we can't necessarily look at another Black person and say, well, you'll know what you know, you'll have an answer for me. Because we don't.
Actually, I don't really disagree with you, Jacqueline. I was just looking forward to the opportunity to say that.
Just wait till we meet in person, Linda.
Right.
That's great. And hearing.
If I could just add that, you know, I appreciate both what Jacqueline and Linda were saying, because I think actually one of the issues that I see right now is that there's this kind of like passport of, well, because you're a Black person, that means that you're relatable for Black students, and this and that. And so you become the point person, even if you don't have the training. And if we had the training, maybe we'd be sending them to the right people who actually are trained to do it and have, you know, chosen to be the person that wants to do that type of labor, right? Because we know that, you know, there's so many different types of ways that we can engage in the university and support. And some people are great listeners, and some people are great educators, and some people are, you know, the spectrum is really large. But right now, I think that because there is a lack of even understanding what that invisible labor is, that we just kind of get, you know, tokenized in a lot of ways.
Definitely.
Thank you, Anik. I feel like we would get like in so much far beyond, and I feel like we have so much to say still about it. And I'm looking at the time; we're still good. So looking at where we're at now, do you feel like we're at a time where we're like starting to make the good actions, the good initiatives, and do you feel like we're kind of creating that sustainable change, not only like in the recruitment practice or the policies, or how we can feel it when English is not my my first language, but what I want to know is that, do you feel like we're going in the right directions with all of the initiatives that are being put into place now?
I think we're going in the right direction.
Yeah,
what's at the end of that? I have no idea.
But when we think about like implementing like sustainable change, like something not just like we're creating an event, we have Black people speaking, and tomorrow we're going back to the same story, to the same things over and over again. So maybe I could switch my question to like, what do you hope to see like for the future?
Well, can I jump in and answer your earlier question?
Of course you can.
Okay.
Of course.
I was talking to a colleague last week, another person like me who's been around for a long time. And he said to me, I've heard this before. And there were initiatives that have happened. There are all sorts of things that have happened in the past, and they have been forgotten. The business school had these community things where Black entrepreneurs, people who had small businesses, would come in and they would, network. They would get some training. We'd give some classes. There were some, there were all these things that were happening, and then they stopped, and now they're forgotten. I was was that last week with the Sir George Williams incident, the book that came out from the people in the whatever, and they were talking about things that happened back in the 60s and 70s. And it was a big forward movement. Yes, we've learned, we're moving forward. And now it's largely forgotten. It's only because this book was written that these issues are back and we're thinking and talking about them. I feel that, yes, we're making forward movement, but unless we find a way to cement this forward movement in some sort of visible way. What was that cool phrase, Jacqueline? Symbols of belonging.
Yes.
I got it. Yeah. We have to create them, and they have to be there. And it has to be like those sculptures in the hall building where people walk by and they say, who are those four guys? Or who is that? Why is this building called the hall building? We have to have those in order to try to maintain the forward progress. But if we do great stuff now, I confidently predict that 15 years from now, people are going to say, what? Who? What was that? I never heard of that.
I mean, that's really, you've really pinpointed something that is really frustrating, is having to start over again. We're constantly reinventing the wheel. We don't even have the necessarily the information to look back on what was done and build on that, even if it stopped at some point, because we're unaware. Yeah, I think you're right. So we do need those symbols of belonging to remind us, like bookmarks, if the story wasn't finished. And we need to, make sure that the next generation can carry on, and we need to fight against people who say, slow down, you're going too fast, you're asking for too much, because it's never the first time that these things have been asked for.
I totally agree with Linda and Jacqueline. I would say the same thing, and I was actually discussing this with my colleagues, and I was saying that I just hope that all the work that we're doing here won't be something that will be commemorated by our Black students in 2040 or in 2050. I just hope that it won't be like that, and my I'm really encouraged to continue this work and for us to really have a stable foundation to continue to push and to move forward without ceasing, I would say. So yes, I'm totally with Linda and Jacqueline on that one.
Yeah, and I feel it doesn't have to be huge. I mean, I guess I'm in the business school and people expect me to say things like scholarships for Black students and, you know, sort of money related things. But man, those people in fine arts, they've got to create a Black face that is in certain places in the university. The people who are into, what is something history? I forget, it's some arts and science thing, you know, where you create these narratives and you find a way to put them out there so that it's not forgotten, because we keep forgetting. We keep forgetting.
I don't know if we forget, but somebody forgets. Somebody's forgetting.
Right.
But yeah, I think that, yeah, I do think that there has to be, and not just a reminder, I think also for those who do come after us to say, well, what happened to that? You know, they were asking for this and we didn't get it. We have it now.
Yeah.
Totally. And so before we open the question period, is there something, maybe it could be an advice, something you want to mention before we open the question session, or something that we didn't mention during the panel today that you're like, oh, that would be interesting to have a word on it? It's okay if the answer is no.
No.
With Linda, no. No, I think you covered everything that, you know, that I'd hope to talk about. And maybe some of the questions will bring up some other things that we haven't thought of.
Awesome. So perfect. So now we will open officially the period for questions. So I see that we have a good amount of participants right now. I don't know if you have questions, and if so, you can just write them in the Q&A little box, and I'll be able to read them once they're here. So I was praying real hard to not have any technical issues. For some moment, I lost you, but I don't think it showed too much.
Oh, no, I didn't show.
No.
Oh no. Oh crap again. Okay. So for now, I don't see questions, but I see comments of people are agreeing. And Umaya said public history. Yes. All right. Okay, so I don't know if people are acting shy or we covered the subject so well that you don't have any questions. It can also be, oh, okay, something just popped up. So Umaya is asking, I'm just wondering what I can do as a student to help change things. That's a very broad question. So
it's a good question.
It is a really good question.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer, but it's a good question. I guess remain involved, and if you're not involved, get involved. You know, with the BPO office may have some things that you can get involved with. There's the Black Student Union, the BSU, that started up last year, I think, that you can be involved with. There, you know, even or not, they don't even have to be, you know, the Black Student Union or the Black Perspectives Office, but just to represent on the groups that are already in existence, whether it's in your department, your program. I mean, that was one of the things that really helped me when I was a student, was to be on the Linguistic Student Association. I learned so much that and you know, when I met people that I might not have met, being that the university was so large. and the classes are so large. So yeah, I think just get involved and see where that leads you.
I guess I can follow up to say that at the JMSB and the John Molson, we don't have a large number of Black students. But when students get involved, for example, I'll give you a particular case of a student last year, a graduate student, who is doing very well. You know, he's almost finished with his thesis. He's getting ready to go on to a doctorate and all of that. And he said, you know, I attended some events of that Black student group. And he said, and it was really great. It really helped me sort of move forward. It helped me to think that I could try new things, etc. And he's done very well as a result. So I don't know how common that story is, but I feel that as students, if you reach out to one another here at Concordia, but even more importantly, if you reach out to your friends, I think Jacqueline made she said something like, my friends got left behind. You know, I came into university and moved on, and my friends got left behind. And I feel that we can all be sort of proselytizers. We can go out there and say, this is the thing to do. You know, I'm a student, I'm having a good time, I'm enjoying my program. Why don't you also find a program you enjoy so that you can do that networking thing and maybe increase the pool of Black students? And they will certainly, listen more carefully to a friend than they will to some sort of faceless recruiter who's out there saying, okay, people come to university, etc. Friends are the ones that really have the most impact at the crucial age where you're making these decisions, I think.
I also think that hearing from a friend or someone that's, you know, has already decided that's the path they want to take, to let them know that it is a place that we can prosper, because unfortunately a lot of the advice that people of color are given in high schools are not they're not necessarily towards university. You know, they're not necessarily encouraged to seek higher education, and so they need to learn it from the rest of us. You know, those that are here, and those of you that are starting. Like you said, bring your friends.
Okay. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Because I just had that connection unstable message. So so for the question, if ever you don't have question, you're also invited to share ideas that you may have also, and like, for example, what still needs to be done, what do you hope to see in the future. So right now I have a question from I'm captivated by the idea of symbols of belonging. See, Jacqueline, it's making its way. It is making its way.
I'm gonna, as soon as I get off here, I'm gonna trademark that.
Make a t-shirt.
Oh,
Sorry, go ahead, Isabel. Oops.
Oh, it's okay. It was lagging on my end. So to avoid entering the cycle of emergence and disappearance of initiatives, is there a space where where past initiatives are archived so that they're not superficially repeated and built upon to progress forward? Yes.
I think that's a great question. And I think that the answer to it is probably that Concordia does have archives. But the other answer to it is we have to make the archives a little bit more front and center, more visible. I went to the archives office once. It was really exciting. They made me put on white gloves and open boxes and touch old photographs and stuff. And it was thrilling. It was really fun. But I shouldn't have needed to go there to find out more about the things that have happened. It would have been nice to have those come out. And I believe that there was a subcommittee of the task force
Yes.
that was working with archives. Were you in that one?
I wasn't, I'm not, no, I'm in the employment one, but there is one, and there are things that are being done to bring things more front and center and to archive what we've done so that it's not lost to history.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's great to hear. And Kyle, thank you very much for your questions. Now we have an intervention of Umaya. So she says, thank you. Just to clarify, I'm thinking of a specific situation where I've taken many Black-centered course, for instance, Afro-American literature, Caribbean literature, etc., taught by white teachers. The teachers are always very sheepish about being in that position, and I don't think they're in. Oh, sorry, I don't think they're in the wrong. But there are so many microaggressions, so much flat out racism stemming from this power, the power imbalance. I suppose my question is, what kind of support there is for students in a situation like this?
Wow.
So do you have an input on this one?
I think.
Oh.
Sorry, Linda, do you want to say
No.
something? Or?
No, I was going to say that sounds like a question for Jacqueline. I'm looking forward to your answer.
Thanks. I think it's something, it would be the same kind of thing in classes that aren't about Black history or Black art, and where, but yet there are things that go on in the classroom that you might not be comfortable with or have questions about. I think you first can start with your colleagues of color. You know, maybe go to an office like the BPO. I don't, you know, they may have, if not an answer for you, but maybe be able to contact some of us who may have an answer. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good question. I hadn't really thought about that. If you're being taught, I didn't even know we had those classes at Concordia, but if you're being taught by someone who you don't feel really understands, you know, I think rather than complain is to go and see, you know, what can be done and to learn more. And of course you can learn on your own too. There are, you know, like Linda did, you know, you can go into, you know, the library, the archives and see, you know, get more information. And then, you know, bring that information up to your professor, because they may, you know, I'm always happy when students, you know, bring me ideas that I hadn't considered or just wasn't aware of, because we're not aware of everything. You know, we try to keep up with even within our own field, but it's not always possible. So yeah, I mean, I would try to I know, I mean, that's actually a really good point, and that's something we should talk about as a task force too, I think, in having those kinds of support systems that for people who are learning and want more that they can't necessarily get from their instructor.
I think that as teachers, we absolutely don't know everything. We're absolutely, I think a good teacher is trying to create that discussion and debate in a classroom and to allow a variety of people to be heard without allowing people to attack one another. And that is something that is a challenge, and it'll be a continual challenge, because more things come up in more ways that societies change. We know that there are going to be more positions, more received knowledge that's going to become debatable. And so I think we really have to see the university as a place where these debates happen and that we all learn from each other. And we were talking a lot about experiences that people have. If I have not had that experience, but you as student do, I can learn from you. But you can also learn from me about parallel experiences, and we can learn from other people in the class about parallel experiences. And so I think a good class, a good course allows people to address and debate these, and then to use sort of their critical thinking facilities to come out with a position that they feel is one that is sound and that represents, their own values, et cetera, et cetera. So how do we make this happen? I think it's by thoughtful feedback to teachers at the end of the term, because even though many students don't really believe it, teachers do read these comments. And there are resources, the Center for Teaching and Learning, where I would go to and say, how do I have a debate in class about an issue that is a real, hot potato? And there are people who will help to, develop your skills at making these debates happen, etc. So I think that not an angry response, but a response that explains your views as a student. And even if a teacher may not be able to handle it right now because the potato is too hot for that teacher, know that your feedback is going to help that teacher the next time he or she is teaching something to be able to have a better debate. And that's the best I can offer. It's not very, may not be very helpful in the present, but I do think that it can help us all move to a better level of debate exchange.
Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned, like teacher, they don't know everything. And sometimes like thinking that we are like, they are well-intentioned into what they're doing. And they did not see something. Well, I think that keeping the communication open, talk to the teacher about like how you felt or something like that. If you're not feeling comfortable, of course, there's opportunities for you to go to come to the PO or to go and see somewhere else. But it's important to have this communication. It's important for these things to be said, because this is how we can make we can have change.
Exactly. 100%. Well, I think that means
so I see that the question, yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to add, because one of the things I was thinking of are professors of color who aren't necessarily considered to be experts because of of unconscious bias, and so that needs to be addressed as well. So it's not always just the students who feel like the person that's in. I mean, when you feel the person in front of you is not teaching you what you need to be taught, then maybe you need to think about why you think that.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point as well. And I don't exactly know how the teacher gets to teach some of the class. I don't know if it goes with your interest, or maybe a teacher has to teach a certain class and they're not much interested, or they don't know a lot about it. So maybe in these cases that can happen. Can you tell us, maybe Jacqueline or Linda?
Let Linda feel that one. That's a hot potato.
Well, I think that we generally try. I was department chair for a while, and so I have thought a lot about this. It's not acceptable for somebody to be teaching a course that they don't really want to teach or they don't feel qualified to teach. That's simply not acceptable. Mm-hmm. If there's a course that maybe you don't know a lot about, but you'd like to teach, usually people would spend a few months before the class starts, reading and thinking and developing and, doing all that, so talking to colleagues, getting information and so on. So I think it is, or it should be, relatively rare that somebody is teaching a course that they don't enjoy and they know nothing about. I mean, that's not an acceptable situation. Mm-hmm. But that said, we all have to start somewhere and we all learn, and I think of people who are teaching for the first time, it takes a while to build your skills, to build your knowledge, to you just grow as the same way that you'd grow in any profession, whether it's in health or in now I can't think of any other professions, but you know what I mean? We all have to learn, we all have to grow. And it's a natural progression, I think, over time. But your question about people who shouldn't be teaching in a particular thing that they're teaching, that makes me quite uncomfortable, because I think that people either have to have the will to learn and to build their expertise to give a course over time, or they have to not teach.
All right. Well, thank you, because I do not know necessarily how the courses are distributed, so I just thought about asking. And Dana, I know that these questions were a little less.
Yeah, they were less of my expertise, so I kind of stayed back a little bit, but I learned a lot.
You can take all the staff questions.
Actually, I have some questions for Dana.
Oh, no.
You asked for it.
You're in the Office of Finance, eh?
Yes.
You see, that's an area that, especially with the big changes happening now with the information system and the unity and all that sort of thing. And as a teacher, I think, man, I wish somebody would teach me about some of these bureaucratic processes in the university in a way that I can really understand. And when I say understand, it's not just a question of knowing which buttons to press, but knowing why. How do these processes develop? Why is it important for me to do this way?
Yeah.
And it's not, I don't want to be off topic here, but I think as we're talking about this notion of the role of staff, I love the idea that staff members have this opportunity to help both teachers and students understand the why behind certain processes.
Yeah.
100%.
And there's definitely a possibility, like maybe that's off like question, but for training and understanding, I've seen colleagues meet with deans or associate deans of research just to explain to them how things work and why certain processes are done a certain way. So we are a services unit, so we provide services to the community. So a simple email will definitely get you into a meeting that will explain why we do why we do it the way we do, and it is our responsibility to serve the community. So there's definitely a possibility for that, definitely. And in terms of unity, there's a lot of training out there. Contact your director of administration, and then you should be set up. Just plug it this year.
I mean, that's one of the things, building on what Linda said, that one of the things that I love about the task force, among all the other things I love about it, is the fact of working with staff. Because I've never had to work with staff that, was outside of my department, right? And learning how the university runs, what happens behind the curtains. That's been really fascinating. Sometimes shocking, but often fascinating.
Yes.
More fascinating.
If I'm to tie it back to the Black experience a little bit, I think that people who, Black students, Black faculty members, these various interpretations we have of events that happened can be attributed in a number of places, and sometimes I wonder if this whole notion we're talking about explaining why is it that you weren't selected to get that promotion? Why is it that you were assigned to do this particular course? If people aren't much more clear about reasons, then we have to make up our own. And I would love to, and sorry if I didn't express that quite right, because what I'm saying, let's say I'm talking about the promotion. If you told me why I didn't get a promotion this time, I know what to do next time. you know? And so I think that that reasoning, that rationale about why there may be problems with, you know, teaching Black topics in courses, you know, Black literature or so and so, why a staff member who is Black just didn't happen to get, you know, transferred to a place that he or she wanted to be. Why? And I think these whys give us the resources we need to change things in the future for ourselves and our careers.
Yeah, and I have to say, assuming that the answer is given in good faith.
That was also my
This is Concordia. We're always in good faith here.
so sometimes the answer to the why does not align with your current situation, and then you're still in the why.
So, yeah, but that's not a, yeah, that doesn't make, that's not a why, yeah.
Okay, I concede. But we can be optimistic.
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
Definitely.
You should, I agree 100%. You should definitely ask.
Yeah.
After that, I don't know what to tell you.
All right. Well, I thank you so very much for taking the time to be here on the panel. I see the time. We're still in the time, but I see there's no more questions. But like maybe before we conclude, do you have maybe a last word that you'd like to share with our audience?
I would like to, I don't know if Anik is still there, but I just want to congratulate and applaud Anik, because I remember meeting Anik when the BPO was just an initiative, and I had all those bright ideas and all those things that we could do, and now I'm actually participating in a panel at the BPO office. At the time before the pandemic, it was an initiative, so I just want to congratulate Anik and everyone in the BPO office for all the work that you're doing. It's truly appreciated.
I definitely want to second that. It's been a great example for us all.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, thank you for the words.
Okay, sorry, I have to jump in with my, what's that line again, Jacqueline? Symbols of belonging.
Symbols of, I'm going to have to write it down because I'll forget myself.
But I sort of became part of this when there was a big petition that was going around.
Same here.
And I recall that one of my responses to the petition was that there is, what's that, the D.B. Clark Theater. I said, let's rename it after that young Black girl who was killed shortly after the Sir George Williams computer incident.
As a result of, yeah.
And sorry?
As a result of.
Yes, as a result of, it was, it came after, but it was linked to all of that. And I thought, let's change the name of this theater and put this girl's name on it, you know? And right now, I don't even remember her name. But if it was the name of a theater, I certainly would remember it. And so I just want to do the biggest shout out ever for symbols of belonging. That's what I think we need.
Yeah, that's what we need.
Definitely.
Great, thank you. Perfect. So if you have, okay, I think this is it. But again, thank you so very much for your time. Thank you for the people that is present in the audience. I see you, I see the comments going. Thank you very much for being with us. For sure, there will be other events coming, and we will keep you informed.
Great.
Of that.
This is fantastic. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
And thank you, Isabelle, for putting this panel together along with some colleagues from the BPO. I see Christine's in here, Tiana's here as well, Anik was here, so congratulations. We're so excited to be a part of it. Hopefully next time we'll actually have you in the space to get back to hybrid event production as we did in the fall. So let's all keep our communal fingers crossed for that. But see what happens when we invite people around the table, give them some time and give them some space. It's a beautiful conversation kind of ensues, and I'm seeing some shout outs and thank yous for your generosity in the chat. And indeed, I just wanted to echo that on behalf of Fourth Space. It is a very generous moment, and we appreciate you being here and sharing your thoughts and ideas and expressions with us. So on that note, folks, it's that time where we end the TV show of today's programming and go to commercial. No, I'm just kidding. We are going to close the webinar, and we do appreciate the audience members who attended and partook in listening to and working through and digesting this conversation. Sometimes you're not burning up with questions and ideas, but it needs to percolate for a bit. So thank you so much for being here. All right. That's it for us. Have a great afternoon, everybody. Take good care.
Thank you.
Thank you.